Buddhism and Shinto briefly, in order to understand to find in them sources of meaning that get applied in everyday morality and in the concept of Japanese personhood. Buddhism. Buddhism is a Japanese import. Buddhism arrived in Japan around 500 AD, having been developed, founded by Buddha in India 1,000 years earlier, 500 BC. In Shawalkar's Guide to Japan, Shawalkar introduces Buddhism as follows. He writes, quote, "Its central theories are that human life is full of suffering due to worldly desires, illness, death, and the loss of loved ones. By getting rid of desires and attachments, one can achieve the state of enlightenment or nirvana and escape suffering and the circle of reincarnations." Now let's take that apart briefly here. Buddhism is characterized by the assertion, by the identification of what have become known as Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths of life. Number one, life is about suffering. Now, the word suffering, hopefully you're connecting over to what it means to be a Japanese engineer, what it means to be a mature person in Japan. Buddhism provides a source of this insight. Life fundamentally is about suffering. Now, this involves more than recognizing the presence of suffering in the world. It's not like turning on CNN and seeing a series of images about suffering that occurs in places other than where we happen to be at the moment. Rather, there's an assertion that the very nature of human existence, in a way, involves pain. And even death brings no relief from pain. Buddhism includes the concept of reincarnation. Now, from where does the suffering come? The second noble truth asserts that all suffering is caused by ignorance of the nature of reality and the craving and attachment and grasping through desire that results from this ignorance. In other words, the basic cause of suffering for humans is the experience of desire. Whoa, now hold on. Picture this from an American point of view. The basic cause of suffering is desire. That means somehow desire is not an especially good thing. Well, again, think about enlightened self-interest. We build an entire moral philosophy, namely enlightened self-interest, around the experience of desire, which we celebrate. In terms of Buddhist philosophy, religious philosophy, desire, the desire that includes attachments to worldly things, and the craving of worldly things, and the grasping for worldly things is the fundamental cause of suffering. So, we move on then to the third noble truth. Involves the ending of suffering. Suffering can be ended by overcoming ignorance and attachment. In other words, it is the management of desire that brings suffering to an end. And now think back to the concepts of ki and kokoro, where the disciplining of children includes the experience of suffering, suffering being a crucial part of managing ki. We can see how Buddhist beliefs and Buddhist interpretations influence everyday experiences of personhood. Suffering can be ended through the management of desire. So it's not a good thing to want to just fulfill desire. We have to manage it. Which leads us to the fourth. The path, there is a pathway to the suppression of suffering, which is described as the Noble Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path includes building into one's being a sense of obligation to a variety of, or 8 separate characteristics and dispositions, which are described as in the following language: right views. You develop the right views, right intentions, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindedness, and right contemplation. In other words, if you build your life around this eightfold path, you will progress in a Japanese sense of moving towards a state of harmony, both for yourself and for others. And so where the state of harmony in this case for the person involves achieving what is understood as nirvana. One reaches nirvana only through going through cycles or iterations of life, death, and rebirth, with hopefully constantly moving towards a state of nirvana. In the Japanese case, in terms of Buddhist dogma or Buddhist philosophy, human existence is not about selfhood. The human existence is made up of 5 features, or 5 bundles in a way, that include the material body, feelings, perceptions, predispositions or karma, or karmic tendencies, and consciousness. In other words, all these are separable from one another, and human existence is somehow all these brought together. So there is no autonomous self. The maturing person is not becoming an autonomous self. A person is only a temporary combination of these aggregates of the aggregation, which is then subject to continual change. So what a person is, as a human being, is changing. One doesn't become fully formed and then goes for help either to bodily medicine or to psychological medicine for help when the self has problems, when there's a pathology. We don't live with this concept of the coherent self. Indeed, in terms of Buddhist framework of interpretation, to believe in a self, as Westerners do, results in egoism and craving, and hence suffering. So, for people who live with Buddhism, egoism, craving, is a source of a problem.